We're back once again with more Robot Wars! Oh, it's been a bit since we did the last review, but now the wait is over! I've been looking forward to getting back into some old school Robot Wars, and honestly, with some of the robots in this, I was excited. Let's not waste any time though, and let's get into this. Craig Giles' intro is something I won't get too into. It was about how size matters, and he called people from the East Orientals. Let's just cut that right there and move swiftly on to the robots for tonight's heat. Roadblock is back, and despite being scuffed on the road signs, is now apparently made of aluminium underneath, which is honestly pretty forward thinking, given that even robots nowadays will typically use aluminium as a nice lightweight but quite durable armour. Despite that, the returning champion is still gigantic, so despite being a relatively simple design, it comes weighing in at 80.9 kilograms. Onslaught is a robot I've actually seen driving around in RoboNerd, and it still functions pretty well, all things considered. It uses car steering, which is definitely a hindrance for them, but it is a quirky little design that I do find endearing. It weighs in at 76 kilograms. Nemesis is back, and boy is it large! Jonathan Pierce claims that it has slicing lobster claws? I'm going to be honest, I don't think we see that the entire heat, so I don't know what's going on there. Maybe someone can explain in the comments, because I was, quite frankly, lost. Anyway, it comes weighing in at 74.5 kilograms. Next up is the radio-operated combat system. It's rocks! Apparently it took out a neighbour's fence, which, given this is a late 90s lifter, is a great excuse for me to remind everyone that building robots is dangerous and precautions should be taken. Like, if this thing can take out a fence, imagine what a modern day robot could do to you. Seriously, try to be safe if you want to build a combat robot of any weight class. These things can be dangerous if not treated properly. Anyway, it weighs in at 79.8 kilograms. Limpet is an interesting robot in my opinion. A simple tracked wedge with a saw at the front, it may not be too notable here, but it did get somewhat resurrected as a beetle weight. And honestly, isn't too bad. John Denny and Team 13 are still regularly involved with competition, appearing in the Robot Wars revival, and even in more recent times made a new heavyweight version of Limpet. This version in Series 2 weighs in at 78.2 kilograms. Kilohertz was up next, and this really is a notable heat historically with all these notable robots and teams involved. This one of course is the debuting robot of John Reed, who to this day is notable as one of the top hammer/axe builders in robotic combat. Given this was the beginnings for them here in Robot Wars, I was curious to see how the robot would do, especially to compare it to its performance in BattleBots 1.0, which I'm also reviewing, be sure to check that out. Kilohertz comes in weighing in at 77.8 kilograms. The Gauntlet has had yet another major change this time. This episode, Kilolot is now in the central path, and more notably is the introduction of the Sentinel. The Sentinel is a stationary house robot that can push robots into the pits, but otherwise appears to just be a straight shot to the finish if you go down that path. Though, given that it is... Though of course, for many that'll be easier said than done. Roadblock certainly thinks it'll be an easy shot as they go in. First they do hesitate as they wait for the Sentinel to come by, but are caught as the Sentinel changes course once they make their move, pinning Roadblock to the wall. Once Roadblock breaks away, they nearly drive into the pit, but they do manage to make it all the way to the end, guaranteeing their way to the next round. Onslaught was up next, and the robot moves quite swiftly and is caught by the Sentinel, although it's almost like it's getting its cheek rubbed like how you would with a cat by the Sentinel. Apart from some skittishness, it does make it past into Dead Metal, who then slices into them. I was worried for a moment there that Dead Metal had done some damage to the drive, as Onslaught always looks a little bit iffy when driving, so I was wondering if it had gotten worse. Though, it wouldn't matter as they would get shoved straight into the pit, so my question would go unanswered. Still with that, Onslaught got 10.5 meters, pretty much ensuring that they would make it to the next round. Nemesis is up next, and the team made it clear that there's essentially no difference to Nemesis this year, which already got me worried. I mean, I don't think too highly of Series 1 if my reviews of Series 1 wasn't already painfully obvious. So, seeing that it was essentially just the Series 1 robot in Series 2, I was definitely not excited. Nemesis smartly takes a different path, nearly making it past the ram rig, but the shopping trolley wheels cause them to twist and turn, meaning they don't make it out in time, meaning that Bash is able to go over to meet them, setting them on fire, and it's a much better fire than in Series 1. My god, it's night and day. Killalot then comes over to meet them, but Killalot does back off. I imagine likely due to all their exposed wiring, because that does end up being a problem for Killalot later down the line. Meaning that Nemesis does make it to the end, ensuring that the furry fireball will be moving on. Rox is up next, and it is tall. With a forklift style system from the looks of things, it honestly doesn't look too shabby. I mean, it doesn't look competitive, but I honestly do find it somewhat endearing. It gets to the ram rigs, but due to the sheer size of it, it does end up getting caught, though it seems undeterred as it runs into Bash, who knocks the lift all off kilter, and then with just no effort at all, Killalot flips them over, ending their run there. With a distance of 8.8 meters though, it did look uncertain if they would be able to move on from this point. The kids seem to be having fun though. Limpet ran the gauntlet next, and honestly, looking at the innards, it was pretty well put together for the time period when they showed all the internals. It also went down the middle route, which I think was the only one that did it this episode, where it easily deals with the seesaw before tussling with Killalot. Well, more Killalot tries tussling with Limpet, who just ignores them. So Killalot, not happy with this, sits right on top of them. With that, Dead Metal was able to come over, grazing them with the saw, as Killalot gets off and then grabs a hold of their left track, snapping it in two. Still, despite that grisly end, with 10.8 meters, they are safe. Kilohertz is last up, and similar in appearance to how it was in BattleBots, the robot looks very nicely put together, if a little light in the armor department with just polycarbonate armor. With their run, they speed past the Sentinel and crash right into Dead Metal. Like, I can't really describe it, like, this is incredibly quick for Series 2. After backing away, they do end up driving into the pit as well, in a major calamity however, ending their run as quickly as it began. Jonathan Pierce and Craig Charles both point out that Kilohertz partially made it into the end zone, and despite pointing out that that surely should count, it is decreed that they didn't complete the gauntlet, meaning that their run ends at 10.6 meters, meaning that the entire world gets to experience the pain I felt with Prince of Darkness. No, I'm never letting that go. Still, Kilohertz was safe with 10.6 meters, meaning that, somewhat sadly, Rox is eliminated. Honestly, some generally solid performances in this gauntlet, with the standout one being Kilohertz. The Sentinel does seem more of an annoyance than a genuine obstacle at the moment, but I'm sure we'll see more of that in time to come. So I'm not going to pass full judgment on it just yet. But safe to say, I'm not sure I'm fully bought into it. Anyway, we move on to the next round, which is Skittles. The goal is for the robots to knock as many barrels over as they can before time runs out, and thankfully for them, the triangle with all the barrels is safe from the house robots, who pretty much get barely involved in this round. Roblox is up first and pushes right in. After a small delay, they soon began making the barrel knocking so easy. Bash seems to knock a few over as well, but honestly, I don't think it made much difference, as Roadblock, in my opinion, did really quite well. The craziest part is that the team was actually quite unhappy with their performance, which, as we see the other performances, will make more sense, but 34 barrels, guys, regardless of how the other teams do, that's pretty great. Onslaught is up next and crashes right into Sergeant Bash, but makes a break for it and looks like a rabbit burrowing away from danger as they begin knocking at the barrels. They do eventually leave the triangle where the house robots dogpile them, though thankfully for them, when time ends, they are guaranteed to be safe, as they ended up with an incredible 57 barrels to their name. I certainly did not see that coming. It's Nemesis's turn now, and it looks like it's been through a war zone as it trundles over to the barrels. Luckily for them, they have no issues, While slow and steady, they have enough torque that any barrels they come into just get knocked over with no issue whatsoever. Even though I didn't see any fire myself, they still made sure to take an extinguisher to Nemesis anyhow by the end. With 38 barrels, they are also safe. Now Kilohertz is up next and races right through the triangle, sending barrels everywhere. Speeding through, they just knock so many of those barrels all over the place. Though unfortunately, things go wrong for them as their robot gets stuck in rear drive, crashing into the wall, ending their run prematurely. The house robots come over at this point, but it looks less like they're going to attack and more to check, like, yo, Kilohertz, you good? It's crazy how powerful Kilohertz is for the era, but much like many shockingly powerful robots throughout history, the reliability is not all there yet. Still, with 64 barrels, they've topped the charts and left Roblox's future in the competition look very uncertain. Finally, it's Limpet's turn. Limpet slowly but surely makes its way in. Despite how capable the design should be for this, they're just too slow to do much of anything, seemingly not able to fix the damage that had been done in the previous round, leading to an overall boring performance, knocking over just 23 barrels and ensuring that they are eliminated. Honestly, apart from Limpet's limp performance, the other robots all did very well in this. Even Roadblock did, but especially Kilohertz, who continues to impress with some shocking speed for the time. But now it's time for the fight round. First up was Roadblock versus Kilohertz. Now I was sure this would end up being our Heat final, as it's the most promising robot of the Heat versus the returning champion. But I felt like I was being given a special treat here by having it be the first fight of the episode. Kilohertz races over with their axe that has a plushie on the end. Still, Roadblock easily wedges them and shove Kilohertz slowly but deliberately into the PPZ, which Kilohertz does nothing about. Yep, I'm sure some of you already guessed it, Kilohertz's drive died once again. With that, the house robots dogpile them, and Kilohertz is eventually pulled into the pit by Dead Metal. What a shockingly disappointing fight. On one hand, for how short but sweet it was, I wouldn't say I disliked the fight, but it's like when you have 2-star students make a C grade in a group project. I mean, you passed. But I was certain this could have been one of the great Series 2 matchups, and I was certainly disappointed that it didn't live up to expectations. After that was Nemesis versus Onslaught, and I was definitely unsure on how the fight between these two odd robots would go. At the same time, this did leave me oddly intrigued. Maybe morbidly so is the better adjective for it. Anyway, the fight begins with Onslaught rushing into Nemesis, where upon closer inspection we see the special edition Nemesis added for this fight. A kebab! They mentioned it earlier in the episode, so it was funny to finally see it. Nemesis seemed to be wandering aimlessly, while the ever-skittish Onslaught ended up getting into trouble with the house robots. Still, after a while, they managed to make it out of that, and at the time it seemed like Nemesis' drive was dying. It turned out the team had lost transmission. This meant that Onslaught was able to take advantage and shoved Nemesis straight into the pit, winning the battle. Well, safe to say that the fight matched my expectations. Though I do wish we got to see the kebab roasted, I don't think it would have done much to improve this matchup, as I saw all the issues I would have expected from this setup really. A largely unchanged Series 1 machine with the unreliability I would expect, and the skittish nature of Onslaught causing itself issues that we've been seeing throughout the entire episode. Safe to say, I wasn't a huge fan of this fight. But it was time for the main event, the Heat Final, Roadblock versus Onslaught. And Roadblock makes their way over to Onslaught, who isn't working at all! It somehow gets even worse! In a disaster, smoke begins to rise from Onslaught as they've caught on fire, burning out internally. Roadblock tries to push them towards the pit, but as Onslaught burns away, Shunt and Dead Metal close in. Though their attention is grabbed eventually as Roadblock starts making its way over to Sergeant Bash for a scrap. Matilda and Dead Metal then put an end to that in quick fashion, pinning them up against the wall. Meaning that we just don't get a fight period really. Like, this fight was undoubtedly the weakest fight of the episode, and I have to argue might be a candidate for the weakest fight of the series. I know we're not done with this series yet, but it's going to be very hard to top how bad this fight was. Onslaught just burnt out immediately, had nothing to do in that heat, and Roblox basically did next to nothing as it nudged Onslaught before being taken out by the house robots by being nudged into the wall. Like, I don't know, I just feel very disappointed here in this heat final. Overall, this episode did start off fairly strong in the beginning, with a colourful variety of teams, some with historical significance behind them, and I was definitely interested to see where it would all go, but as the episode went on, it felt like more and more promising aspects got unceremoniously dropped, past the gauntlet round, and seemingly all due to unreliability. Because of that, I certainly couldn't rely on this episode for its entertainment factor. God, that was terrible, and I can't really recommend it. So, I don't think you'll miss anything giving this episode a skip, unless you want to follow the journeys of several teams who, in my opinion, are quite notable in the world of British robot combat. Still, despite my disappointment with this episode, I hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, please be sure to leave a like on this video, comment down below what you thought of this episode if you've watched it before or are about to watch it. Let me know what your thoughts are afterwards. If you could share the video around, that would help me out as it gets more eyes on the channel, and if you subscribe and hit that notification bell if you haven't already, that'll get you notified of future videos on the channel. Finally, there's also the join button, which if you join, you can become a member, and that helps me out quite a great deal. It'll help me out with making future videos on the channel. You get access to becoming a member gets you access to custom emotes that you can use in streams and premieres, and also, as well as I think you can use it in comments, and also gets you access to members-only videos. I've got some more members-only videos cooking right now, but, I've got some more members-only videos cooking right now, so hopefully you'll be seeing some new ones very soon. And of course you can watch the members-only videos that I've made in the past. Anyway, I hope to see you all next time. Thank you for tuning in. Bye, guys!